The following program is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. You can request podcast topics, enjoy exclusive RPG and video content, and more. Even just $1 a month gets you gameplay episodes a week early and makes you officially cool. Just like our Trash Elite, Rob and a guy from Ohio, DG, Distru City, KTL, Kitty Holbrook, Drake, Starstorm, and Passion Killer 711. Greetings and salutations. It is I, Eric J. Chucky, joined as always by the boy.
Hello.
This is the Two Nerds Podcast, and today we are stealing mail from the All Elite Arcade AEW Games podcast featuring Evil Uno and the Chugs. This mail was intended for them. I have listened to all of their shows and stolen all of the relevant questions that we can answer that aren't like, Chugs, when you do wrestling moves, how does it relate to Handsome Jack from your favorite video game? But we still like to credit the people who asked because that feels appropriate.
Also, it's a way of, I don't know, it's nice to read what was on the envelope and then rip open the envelope and steal what's inside.
Yes. Before we get into that, we do need to discuss, it is critical, what's crumping? My friend, what is crumping with you? What has been crumping with you?
First, the chief crump, that is the reason this is the podcast instead of a different thing. I swear to you, I'm getting through Diamond is Unbreakable. I am. It's just a lot of anime to watch, you guys. Secondarily, I'm playing Diablo 2 again, this time with a controller because of my friend White Raven. It is peak. It is an excellent way to relax after a long day of my day job.
Which, as I recall, just for the sake of the listener, is reaching into the hulls of fish and removing all of their organs and then sending them on for processing.
Spiritually, kind of.
Okay. What the hell did I do? I finished 10 speed in Brown Shoe. Oh, I watched all of Ironheart.
Yeah. That is all. All of the treats are waiting until I finish. I can't have my pudding unless I finish my meat first.
I have been advised not to watch the next season of JoJo's. I got a couple of episodes in. Don't care for it so far. My dear friend here reminded me that I'm good at forgetting.
And if he watches the entire next season, when I do eventually manage to fucking claw through and finish this season, he's not going to remember what the fuck I'm talking about. So
yeah, it's entirely possible. I've already lost a lot of names from Diamond is Unbreakable. So I decided to watch some stuff I actually gave a shit about. And I want to get through the rest of the Marvel series that aren't Ms. Marvel or, what's it? The name of it? What If? For whatever reason, my brain is giving me PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and that's not the name of that show.
No, it's not even
close.
It's not even visible anywhere on your screen.
No, I don't know why. But anyway, yeah. So I watched Ironheart. It came out last year. I doubt we'll do a full podcast on it. It was decent. I liked seeing the Hood.
I didn't know the Hood was the bad guy until he told me a while ago. That makes some of the things I do know about this show make a whole lot more fucking sense.
It sure does. It wasn't... the way I described it, I guess, if you guys want an actual short review, remember how we were all really excited about basically any bare bones superhero plot back before Infinity War? It's that. If it had come out back then, we would have eaten this shit up with a spoon. We are
culturally, as a society, spoiled.
Yes. I thought it was fun. It was a good way to spend a day. I rarely binge watch a series in one single day, so that has to say something for it. But we're done. We're done crumping. All the crumping is over. We move on now to questions. Are you ready?
I'm gonna try and be.
Do you need more time?
I don't see a way that I could gather it.
I don't know why you would come over here so far from your home and sit down in a chair next to me, unprepared for what you knew.
I'm as prepared as I can possibly pretend to be.
Could you pretend to be able to pretend to be more prepared?
I'll try.
Okay. Go ahead.
Here we go!
All right. Grim Preacher asks, how do you think game developers balance innovation with fan expectation in long-running franchises? For example, with all the remakes coming out over the last few years, is that the best direction to keep things fresh without alienating fans? We're starting with a deep one.
Yeah. I have, unfortunately, only kind of a pithy answer. How do I think they do that? Badly.
Depends on the studio, but often that is the case. When it comes to remakes specifically, remasters, what have you, what I'm looking for is obviously like an upgrade in presentation somehow, but quality of life features are more important to me than new content.
They're honestly more important to me than new graphics.
To a certain extent,
I know a lot of people like when you say remaster, you want it to look prettier, and like that's nice, but guys, I swear, I've been playing video games for a long time. Once you're really into a video game, you're not going to notice. The world falls away and you're just there.
The graphics of Fallout New Vegas, while what they are not the problem I have trying to play Fallout New Vegas again.
Quality of life stuff is...
Yeah, a run button, moving on the floor as though it were a floor and not a super slippery sliding rink. Not even ice skating. It's like a cartoon. It's like my legs. You can hear the
little wheels, your hips. Yeah.
Same thing for Diablo 2, which I tried to get into, and it's definitely the best Diablo I've played. But like a lack of things like quest markers and a better sense of direction, which is a lot of stuff other gamers crave. That lack of that old school feel. So I think these should all be optional features that you can turn off.
Well, for Diablo 2, it is a specific challenge because the levels are procedurally generated. They can't give you a quest marker because they don't know where it is yet.
Right. Well, I mean, the game knows where it is once it's generated. I suppose you would generate it on the back end and then set the quest marker. But I don't even need to go... I don't... Maybe a map. Maybe like a readable map and not just a this is where you've been sort of map.
Like fill in as you go.
Yeah, and just like a wireframe until then that's like head southwestish instead of go to the graveyard as though I know where the fuck that is. Wander around until you discover a graveyard.
There you go.
That's probably the one.
And I understand why, if you're not used to it, that would be frustrating.
Sure.
To actually answer the question, I feel like you're absolutely right. It's very dependent on studio. And it's dependent on whether you're making a remake or a remaster.
I would agree.
A remaster should have very little in the way of innovation. Quality of life changes, make it so that I can collapse the inventory tabs. Make it so that I have a way to turn off this feature that was like wildly unpopular at the time. I'm being vague because, specificity ruins trying to answer this question. Quality of life changes are good in a remaster. Actual innovation, I do not think is appropriate. Because that's not what you're there for. In a remake, I feel like you have a much freer hand. I feel like you should feel, as a developer, much freer to be aiming for a general vibe as opposed to the exact mechanics of the day.
As a broader question, not specifically referencing remakes and remasters and such, I think you want to be careful with your innovation. Too many new systems at once are going to turn the general public away. You'll get some people who love that, but I think there's something you don't want to overload, especially if you're a franchise. You don't want to overload your game with.
It can be hard to maintain the same feeling if you change too much shit at the same time.
Yeah. I think Mega Man to Mega Man X is a fine example. They added the armor collection. They added a dash. That's not too much. Dash isn't that different from a slide, Yeah.
I think a good example is not so much Origins to 2. I feel like they changed a bunch.
Yeah.
But Dragon Age 2 to Inquisition, I feel like was a great change. It still felt very similar, but it was, there was enough innovation that it felt new and fun to play.
I would agree with that. Our next question comes from Digital Pete. What indie games do you feel have had the most impact on the gaming industry and why?
man, what counts as an indie game anymore?
That is a tough question. I like the go-tos are like Super Meat Boy and Braid and the stuff that was part of that big first indie push, revelation, paradigm shift. But that just feels so historical. You know what I mean?
A great example that you mentioned earlier on this very podcast is PUBG.
Sure,
PUBG created a sea change in the gaming industry.
Yep.
Fucking for 10 years, everything was PUBG.
I don't even think that was the first battle royale game.
No, I believe
just the most popular.
It was just the one that like nailed the formula.
So in the same way, one could say League of Legends. One could say, Blizzard was big enough that they weren't an indie studio, but League of Legends, absolutely.
Yeah. League of Legends, honestly, less so. League of Legends is League of Legends. For like a decade, everything was PUBG.
I think the Battle Royale format has been more successful in a broader scope than the MOBA format.
Yeah, it's exactly the point I was making. Yeah,
but they tried.
They kept trying to make Leagues of Legends.
Yeah. I played a bunch of them. Some of them were good. Most of them were not. I think that's basically short answer, but I think that explains it. Jules H asks, what makes a game truly timeless, and what games from the last decade do you think will still be played 20 years from now? That's a really interesting question, because I feel like the way games are continued to be played has changed. About 20 years ago, 15 years ago maybe, we started moving into the games as a service model. And that is really popular right now. So I remember when Overwatch dropped, I said, I'm going to be playing this game for however many years. It was on the podcast somewhere, one of our year in reviews. I'm not now because of how the game has changed, but like I would have been.
I feel like games as a service have actually, for all that it's made a lot of shareholder value, it has been probably a detriment for video games. Especially as it comes to replayability.
I will especially say for AAA games, it's really like because they focus so hard toward that.
Because like as a great example, there's a lot of games that might have been in that echelon of will be being replayed in 20 years that's just not true. Because games as a service have cut the knees out from under them such that in 20 years, they're not going to be playable, dog.
Right. That is true as well. And Marvel Heroes comes to mind as one of those examples. It was a games as a service game. It's gone now. I can't play it anymore. Well, there are ways, but they're a little bit beyond my professional scope, and I don't know that I am that invested in playing it again. Nosgoth, I thought was a fun as hell game. But it got its knees cut out from under it in utero, basically.
And how many timeless classics have we lost for the sake of shareholder value? But there are still games that I think qualify. For whether or not you like them, and they're somewhat controversial here on this podcast to people who I know have never played either of these games. You may have played a bit of one. I don't quite remember. The God of War games, not the originals, but the Norse arc, God of War and God of War Ragnarok. Those will be getting played again in 20 years.
So, and that's part of the question as well, that it's so subjective, because I don't know, man, what games really left an impression on you in the last 10 years? Those are probably going to get replayed, and whoever's got the aggregate of that. Hades is a great example.
Yeah, Hades, Red Dead Redemption 2.
Sure.
These are games that are gonna be sticking around, but at the same time, it's hard to tell because every year there's more games.
Well, and also with the advent of the popular remakes and remasters, people were playing Oblivion last year, and myself included on the channel, and that was all. I would not have said that I'd still be playing that game, or that I would be playing that game again 20 years from then. And yet,
here we are. Here we sit.
Anything else you'd like to offer on this subject?
No, I think I made my thoughts clear.
Rio has a query for us via Evil Uno and the Chugs. Which games do you think have the best voice acting, in your opinion? If those voice actors weren't in the game, do you still think it would be as great?
Not to keep banging this fucking drum, but Red Dead Redemption 2. There's a very short list of games I can genuinely say changed my life. And that's on it. And it's really down to command performances from a lot of voice actors, most notably Roger Clark, who plays Arthur.
It's funny because it's a little harder for me to imagine roles in voice acting done by someone else as opposed to, like, screen acting. Screen acting.
Honestly, I think that's probably because voice acting is a lot more malleable. There's an old saw in the voice acting industry that you better be nice to work with because so many people can do your exact job.
Exactly. And you know what? I say that, and when you are a voice who is famous before your role, I will then find, like, well, what if we did this more like this? Opinions. As much as I do like them, the Critical Role cast, when they're not putting on a good big voice and they just sound like themselves, kind of grates on me a little bit when I hear them at this point.
It's just familiarity breeding contempt.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like, and the specific example I was mad about last year around this time, it doesn't feel like I'm playing with Thor and Doctor Strange. It feels like I'm playing with Travis Willingham and Liam O'Brien.
And they won't shut the fuck up.
Yeah, that's not what I want.
Honestly, that's a great way of putting it. For a lot of voice actors, you don't want to recognize them because once you recognize them, they become them.
On the other hand, when I played Persona 5, the character Matt Mercer voiced, I don't think I would have liked him if he weren't Matt Mercer because he's a weird little pervert.
But and you like Matt Mercer.
Right. It made me a little less against him. So, you know, it's kind of a mixed bag. I'd have to agree with you. And obviously games like Mass Effect and Dragon Age have had voice acting performances that it's hard to consider another person doing those roles.
Yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of voice actors who would have done just as good a role.
Agreed.
But, like, I recognize Talizora's voice. And if you change it, I'm gonna notice.
Sure. I think the question is more that if it was never her instead of it changing half stream. But your comment is also valid. It just comes down to craft and skill, like any acting thing. I don't think it's any special je ne sais quoi. You know, you want there to be, perhaps, as a questioner, you want that argument of so-and-so is the best voice actor and this was the best performance and you couldn't have changed it. But, like, if it had started different, I think you could have.
We are fortunately blessed with just a great wealth of incredibly talented voice actors.
Yes.
Who often do amazing work that goes unremarked.
I will say that caliber is perhaps more important than specific performance. I think you could have had somebody else other than Roger Clark play Arthur Morgan, but they would have to be as good.
That, I think, is... Yes. Yes, absolutely. I struggle to think of who would... I can't fan cast voice actors for much the same reason you can.
Yeah. I'm not a casting director. It's one of those things, if I were a casting director, it would be, I don't know, man, do your performance. Hey, that sounds hot.
But in terms of just nailing, like, really standout voice acting that stuck with me, there are definitely, and you've already named all the franchises. It's, you know, Mass Effect, Morden.
Yeah, Morden was the one that I bring it to. And I don't think I would have gotten into the franchise if it weren't for Jennifer Hale. Yeah. Having a contrast to Mark Meer being directed to sound like an upset frog, it helped me. And that was a directorial choice.
Yeah, you listen to Mark Meer do other stuff. Shepard's voice is intentional.
Yeah.
He's doing that on purpose.
I don't know why. Very strange. Thank you for your question, person whose question I deleted. We're on to Sam now. Do you believe most gamers prefer that their video games have attractive characters, or do you think developers are forced to make their characters attractive to sell video games? Not an either or. That was a rephrasing of the question.
Yeah, because that was a complete tautology.
Right. Do you like option A or option A?
But I guess the easiest way to explain this is people. I wouldn't say that most people want, like, it's not that they're looking for gooner bait. It's that, for better or worse, most people don't like looking at ugly for like a long time.
I think the answer to the question is yes, but the scope of what is attractive is broader than people think.
Yeah, basically yes. That is a less brain rotted version of what I was trying to say.
To return to what we were just talking about, they didn't make Garrus romanceable in Mass Effect 1 because they figured nobody would.
Because he's a weird bird alien.
And then the demand was there for Mass Effect 2, and they went, well, okay, we wanted to do that anyway.
You got it. But I don't, by attractive, you don't have to necessarily mean conventionally attractive by Hollywood Western media standards.
Right.
They have to be pleasant to look at in some way or striking. People just don't like looking at ugly for a long time.
Unless they've made the executive decision to look at ugly, see most Dark Souls player characters after your first run.
Yeah, but that's for the joke. That person is...
At this point, I think it's for the culture. I don't know that it's a joke. It's just like, I'm doing another run of Dark Souls 3. My guy's head's going to be freak. Big, flat, and blue.
Yeah. But... And even then, I don't even think that is universally true. I think some people could give a shit less about this sort of thing. But there definitely is a segment of people who play video games who don't want to look at something they find, like, aesthetically unpleasing for 40 to 50 hours. And I think that's actually fair.
Yeah, I would agree with this. Whether it's just the graphics or Dungeons of Hinterberg, whatever the name of the game was. It had an art style that I hated. They mixed some elements, and I thought the gameplay was really fun, but I could not play the fucking game because I didn't want to look at it.
And but you know, that's the exact point I'm making.
Yes.
But I don't think that's the question that guy was asking. I am sort of dodging that question.
Well, and to go back, I mean, okay, given the rough time period from which I drew this question, I believe this is a very well-navigated question about the Horizon sequel.
Where the HD resolutions became too strong for some of the gamers.
See, you said gamers this time, but Gooners last time, and I find that interesting. I think angry people are going to yell on Twitter no matter what.
Someone's always going to be upset. Yeah. And there is a group of people who are very motivated to make you upset about a very specific set of things. I'm very vague there because that is true for lots of different groups of people.
Yeah, and I would agree. Yeah. Did you have an end to that point? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. I'm thinking.
I would say, as another example of attractiveness, I am not traditionally attracted to your average mid-skin tone, short-cropped hair, something of a beard, brown eyes male that is the protagonist of so many video games, to the extent that when I see one, it makes me not want to play the game.
John, video game protagonist is pretty much the quickest way to make you not want to play a video game.
It gives me a hurdle that I have to get past. It's not impossible. I've been enjoying Half-Life, and Gordon Freeman is just that with glasses. But it's also not really the point of Half-Life. But I don't know that it has to do with me being, it's sexually attracted, wanting to copulate with this main character.
That's ultimately the delineation I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
As it regards to, it's not that it's a gooner bait. I'll just be blunt. It's not that people want to only look at, I want to fuck this guy. I want to fuck this girl. That's not it. It's the things that are nice to look at are generally going to be nicer to look at.
Yeah. If your goal is to sell skins, then make them gooner bait. Make your money, boo-boo.
I mean, yeah, if your goal is to sell, if your goal is to sell specifically any sort of, my brain keeps giving me consumable, but it's not that
cosmetic.
Cosmetic, thank you. I just couldn't pull it up.
You're welcome.
then your market is the Gooners. They're your... Well, why are you laughing?
You couldn't pull it off? That's a wanking joke. I was trying to hold it in, but it went through my head. Please continue your smart guy words.
God, this fucking guy. That's your market. That's who buys those. So yes, that is what you should make.
I think make your shit varied in that sense. I'm always more interested in a game where I have character creation options. Even if I don't see my character that often, it pleases me. The more options, the better.
For me, that's actually not necessarily true. If I'm not going to see my character that often, I often get a little annoyed if they give me a bunch of character creation options.
I would like the ability to look at my character if you're going to give me the options, to make a save screen or just to enjoy my new armor for a second or something.
Yeah.
I would say the biggest thing Marvel Rivals has over Overwatch is that when you buy the skin, you see it all the time.
As opposed to Overwatch where everybody else sees it.
Yeah, that's a weird model there. I think we've thoroughly answered that question one way or the other.
I think so too.
Vincent now asks, do you have any tips on how to convince my friends to give one of my game ideas a shot without turning it into a long discussion every time? And Vincent does mean here, for context, ideas of a game to play, not ideas for a game to make.
Oh, yeah. Here's a great tip. Buy it. Buy it for them. Steam gift.
That's true. The guilt will push them into playing.
You ain't got to make a big conversation. You've received a gift from Vincent. He's bought Portal 2. Congratulations. They'll either play Portal 2 or they'll feel real bad about it.
or they'll have to refund it at you and then maybe consider getting less shitty friends. I know that's hard, especially if you're our age, but sometimes you got to treat yourself, man.
Look, and if you're not willing to go that mile to, or you ain't got the scratch to be buying up a bunch of video games for your friends, that's valid. In that case, just go with ruthless, emotionally vulnerable honesty. So few gamers are prepared to deal with ruthless, emotionally vulnerable honesty. Hey, I really like this game, and I would appreciate it if you'd give it a shot. Try it. I bet you'll get a lot more success than you think.
Something's going to happen. Yeah, I don't have anything in addition. Clark wants to know. It might be Roger Clark. He might be here. What's the most impressive gaming feat you've ever witnessed?
I like that you did that because I have been thinking about suggesting you do the questions in voice acting from characters with that name the whole podcast. And now I enjoyed that you did it so much I forgot the question. Could you give that to me one more time?
Oh, I got it undeleted. Hold on. What's the most impressive gaming feat you've ever witnessed?
Should this be personally or just on the internet?
Roger didn't specify.
You answer first.
Oh, shit, I don't know. Ouch, my arm, pat. I don't watch a lot of, stunt gamers. I feel like that might not be the phrase.
Professional gamers?
No, I watch a lot of professional gamers. They get paid for what they're doing.
Professional gamers who are actually good?
And that's what, people who are skill gamers or something. I don't know. I don't know what the fucking words are. I'm so chopped. So I don't see people doing, epic maneuver. I just don't. So when I think of that, I think of shit I did, and that's not cool.
That's the thing you did, not a thing
not a thing I saw. So, I just don't watch a lot of people play games. Period. I even when I'm watching Let's Plays and stuff, that's usually second monitor content. That's not what I'm focused on. So I really can't sum it up. I think maybe it was probably some Kaizo Mario nonsense. Some Mario Maker level that was ridiculous and a guy pulled it off and I went, wow, very cool, and then immediately forgot it happened. I'm just not in that culture.
That's fair. I have a couple answers. One, if I'm going just pure, wherever I derived it from, I certainly wasn't in the room. I watched it, I saw it on the Interbutts. Moment 37 from Evo. is, if we're just going pure, that's the most impressive thing I've seen in gaming. It's ridiculous. Just look it up, watch the video. It's from the ancient days. It's very cool. Personally, like, I literally saw this happen live, or I was in the room for it. I have two. They're both related to Soulsborne games. Actually, they're both related to Dark Souls 3. I watched. I was when I watched you. I think it was you are the first person I saw beat Soul of Cinder by yourself. It's very hard. Like, that was before I beat Dark Souls 3, and that's actually, like, I know that sounds silly, but that's harder to do than you think. Summoning is probably the smart call for that fight. And then the second is a friend of ours who does not play these games. Does not play Soulsborne games at all. Has never really played any of them. Has played a very since this moment has played a very minor amount of Elden Ring. Casually loaded up Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3 started there, made a character, walked into Iodex Gundyr, and fucking ran his shit, and went, oh, well, that was fun, and turned the fucking game off and walked away like a hyper Chad.
Second try. It wasn't the first try, but it was the second try.
That counts as running his fade, brother.
He had played Dark Souls 1 before, and she did a similar thing to the demon boss there. Not the first fight where you're supposed
where you don't
to
have a sword
dungeon, but like the second encounter just defeated him first try.
Like, it was one of those times you like, man, Dark Souls is so challenging and so fun, and it's difficult, and that's part of the challenge. And then you see a gamer who is actually, like, on a higher power level of gaming show up and be like, what? Like, it's hard? And then just fucking waltz through?
I think it only took her, like, 3 tries to beat, all the names are the same. Talkative man on the bridge in Elden Ring. Margit. It was not a lot.
It took me way more than 3 tries to beat Margit, and I've beaten many of those games.
She's just goated.
Just fucking goated. Ridiculously goated.
Yeah. Legend of Ralph writes in to another show and says, with the recent Running Man remake, I'm not doing a Wreck-It Ralph. Boy, I don't think any of us want that.
It's not even much there. It's kind of a light voice.
Yeah. If a Running Man was made using video game characters, who would your team of stalkers be, 5 of them, to ensure the main character does not survive?
Oh, this is really neat. I'm stealing this question. I'm making it a gauntlet.
I guess, I'm going to make a note of that, and stay tuned for us doing another gauntlet someday in the future. Stolen for Gauntlet.
That's a great idea for a round of the Gauntlet, so I'm stealing it.
Yeah, thanks, Ralph. So instead, Drew, what video game from your childhood that made a big impact on you do you feel no one ever talks about?
Not to be a normie, but I don't know that I got an answer for this.
I don't know that you do either. You're kind of a normie when it comes to, like, I mean, you're like a PC gamer, but as a PC gamer, your opinions are pretty standard.
Yeah, look, there's a Fallout TV show, dog. I win. What do you got?
Nobody ever talks about. Ridiculous. Few people ever talk about. I really like The Boy and His Blob. I really rented a lot of esoteric NES games. I never beat A Boy and His Blob. It didn't make any sense to me. The Master System Alf game, that really stuck in my memory. You beat people with a salami.
I think that's a real good pull.
A pedophile comes after you, I think.
Whoa!
This is a man in a trench coat. He probably works for the government, but, he gives off the vibes. He would be in a starring role in the Ferris Bueller movie if you're picking up what I'm putting down. I was just into a lot of esoteric stuff. Like, I always have been. Here's a great answer. I do this series. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Violent Profiles. Half of the episodes are that. I saw this weird little thing when I was a kid. Run Saber is another one.
I'm such a normie, I don't have an answer, and he's such a niche creature that he has a whole YouTube series.
I love weird little fucking thing. As much as we were talking about earlier, I don't want to play Diablo 2, at length, even though it's very good, because I'm just too privileged, I guess. I'm too used to the cushion of modern gaming conveniences. But despite that, I do love finding a weird little fucking guy who doesn't know how to make video games but really wants to.
It's great.
Yeah, they just have some wild ideas. Carlos writes in, and he asks, I'm a 50-year-old gamer who's seen his share of consoles. If someone were to give you the money to create your very own console, which part of each console you've played would you include in order to make the perfect console?
This is a strange question.
It is a really unique one, yeah. Sometimes I skip questions like these because when I'm stealing them from All Elite Arcade's mailbag, they can be overly personal to the guys on the show specifically, or they just don't. There's just like an easy answer, move along. But I thought this one was really interestingly constructed. It's not, it's not as pat as, and we have these questions in the future. What's your favorite console? What's your favorite handheld? That kind of thing. But I don't know. I think it's interesting. You can't just make your own console, because I suppose that's not an interesting question. I would just make it the best.
Yeah, I would like to just make it the best, please.
Yeah, in that sense, like a Super Nintendo, but better.
I'm not going to include PC because that's cheating. Because then the answer is PC, but make it more user-friendly.
Why, they have Steam for that.
Well, there we go. But I think I would give it the ease of development of, like, more modern consoles. Like, 'cause some of the older consoles were...
Some of the mid-range consoles were really hard to develop.
Just genuinely difficult to make games on, and that doesn't give you a good option. I would not necessarily grab the library from any particular console.
No, because I'd want to have new games. Why are we making this console if just only to play old games?
Yeah, I have the old consoles for that. I'd like to give it the the power of the most modern consoles, because one, that makes it easier to make games for, and two, it makes it easier to like have games on. It gives you a lot of space, that sort of thing. I would want to go with digital, a game on digital. I know physical media is better for you actually owning your video game, but digital is just very, very convenient. And I'd like to go with the level of ownership and usage rights of like a Super Nintendo.
Digital, but then you do actually own it.
Yes. If I have magic powers, I'm going to use them for good. I would like to actually own my video games that I own, but the rest of it from a modern console. Because that's the only part of modern consoles I don't like, is the idea that if I can buy a game, and if they get a wild hair up their nose, my game that I bought goes away forever.
And really, I mean, I say an old Super Nintendo just because that and the Genesis, I love that era. There's just something about it. I love a lot of eras of gaming. Most of my gaming is modern games. I'm not that guy. But there was just something about what we were doing back then. And modern games like The Messenger iterate on that place. There's something compelling about being forced to make 8-bit or 16-bit graphics, or even 32, but less so, and trying to reconcile what your sprites have to look like to convey what you're attempting to convey. And there's just some...
there is a sweet zone of limitation in art that can force creativity.
Yes, and leave the game a little bit more open to interpretation for the user as well. You don't really get that. You pretty much know what you're looking at most of the time. And I don't mean in terms of readability. I want readability, but like, there's no... there's no 4 a.m. what the fuck is this monster coming after me horror anymore, unless you're new to horror, you know, or susceptible to it, I suppose. But I mean, really, honestly, it would be something like a Steam Deck or a Nintendo Switch, something that I can play in docked mode, that can play the games I want to play beautifully, that, you know, has good internet access. I prefer a controller, and like I can be romantic and say, oh, I liked, you know, the Super Nintendo controller or what have you.
Yeah, what controller? That's a good one. I mean, for me, it is just the Xbox controller, not the Duke. As much as he deserves respect, it was not comfortable.
But yeah, that's actually exactly what I was about to say. As much as I might have romantic feelings, sexual ones, about Super Nintendo controllers, like my current Xbox controller is my favorite controller. As much as I prefer the Xbox controller, the lack of the feedback on the PlayStation 5 controller has made certain games where that's a key feature less fun. I was so excited for the next part of Final Fantasy Remake, Rebirth, I think it is, to come out on the Xbox, because that's where I do most of my gaming. But then I played a demo for Final Fantasy 16 and realized there was a whole door opening, I wouldn't call it a mini game, but like feature where Xbox doesn't push back. I'm just hitting the button and a short cutscene is playing instead of having that visceral push. I do like that about the PS5 controller. It can really add some immersion to what you're doing.
I have giant mitts. PlayStation controllers are a wee bit small.
So, in that sense, I suppose, since we're making this hodgepodge monstrosity, an Xbox controller that is in all other ways like a PlayStation controller.
Yes, okay. Form factor of Xbox, functionality of PlayStation.
Yeah. Spectacular question, Carlos. Harry. I think Harry's going to be our last question today.
All right, Harry.
Harry was wondering, and I will not be doing an impersonation of Harry from Harry and the Hendersons. He is a Sasquatch.
That's fair.
I was wondering, what games do you find unplayable? What generation do these unplayable games go back to for you guys?
When was the last game that I played that I just went, this blows. I hate it.
So, I think the modern era is the worst about this. Because, I mean, especially literally right now with the number of shitty AI games that are starting to infest things, shovelware has taken on a new meaning. But even before that, there are several games I played by indie devs that are essentially a scam to get my $5. They don't work. They don't work past the start screen. The hit detection for man-hitting platform is so awful that you'll get soft locked at every turn. Some don't boot upright. Some don't stay booted upright. And this isn't just those kind of indie games. I played an Asterix and Obelix game that was terrible. The sprites just sort of floated there in the air after they were beaten up by my tiny winged helmeted man. Right now, we're in a golden age for this thing doesn't fucking work. If I'm not allowed to say that, if you're not counting shovelware, it was obviously, well, if you're not counting modern indie crap, I should say, it was obviously the Wii. The Wii had so many terrible ass, this doesn't line up games. And unlike the Kinect, which had similar games, the Wii had them in droves because it was a money printing machine otherwise. So people designed these motion controls games for the Wii, and they were not useful. They were not functional.
You're absolutely right. Modern era, generally, for all the reasons you mentioned, early PC gaming.
Sure. Yeah.
Well,
valid.
that is to say, 90s and early 2000s are PC gaming. Early PC gaming is Zork, and that's a whole different thing.
Hey, man, sometimes you type get ye flask, and they say ye cannot get ye flask. And what are you left to do?
But the PC gaming I grew up with had a lot of games that just did not seem to want me to play them. And actually seemed to resent the idea that someone might. And most recently, I tried a Dragon Ball video game.
The MMO, yeah, I remember this.
That I think might have been like some sort of scam to put spyware or something on my computer because it was so shitty. I can't imagine why else it would exist.
It's official.
It's so bad.
Yeah, I like there were some NES games, Bad Dudes comes to mind, that didn't feel like games. They barely felt like tech demos. They barely felt like people understood what they were doing. But even then, like, it's not as bad as some of the literal freeze-ups and hang-ups. And game dev is hard. I'm not trying to be cruel here, but like, we don't cut off a podcast halfway through and then put it up and be like, here's your podcast. We did once do one without audio. We didn't realize.
Oh, your fault for not telling us.
I deleted it later. My bad. But it's not like we're going, hey, come to our Patreon and give us $5 and get the next episode of Violent Profiles. And it's 15 minutes of a black screen with no audio. You know?
Everyone who's ever made a video game has made at least one more video game than I have ever made. I don't want to take away from these people, but also everyone who has ever like done a lot of stuff has done something I've never done before. And sometimes they fuck it up. It's possible to fuck it up even if I'm not good enough to do it.